What you hear tonight can and may be controversial, and has been looked to be the exorbitant topics of the world. For the hidden truth of the unknown is a mystery for some, or is it all just a conspiracy? Welcome to Aliens, UFOs, and Beyond with Christina George.
Alrighty, everyone. This is Christina George, and I'm checking to see if my co-host Renee is on the air yet with us. Renee, are you here?
I am here.
Awesome. Okay, well, I just want to start out, everybody, by welcoming you to the Aliens, UFOs, and Beyond show tonight. We've got a great guest. We have Alfred Lambremont Weber III, and many people know him. I mean, I've had so many people ask me to have him on my show, much less Andrew Faggio, and I actually was able to get connected with Alfred through Andrew. So it was very nice, and I am so honored that he's going to be here tonight. And there's just so much that we have to talk about. I feel so honored, and I know Renee does too, because we were just, looking over. I've followed him for a while, but I was showing a lot of Renee, what Alfred does in his, shows, and he's a journalist, and he's a writer and an author, and, all kinds of things. He has exopolitics.com, exopolitics.blogs.com, and amazing topics, all kinds of interesting stuff. So we're going to see where all of this stuff really ties in. We're going to talk about DARPA. We're going to talk about disclosure. We're going to talk about time travel. I definitely want to talk about Fukushima. We want to talk about conspiracy, the NSA, everything that you want us to talk about tonight, we're going to talk about it. Because I will tell you, my guest, no matter what topic we're on, I mean, he's probably one of the, leading people to go to right now. And he's got books coming out, all kinds of stuff about all this stuff. So I've said over many shows, just myself, how I started out as, being this young girl who had abilities that I didn't understand, had no idea really what I was supposed to do with them, then ended up having all kinds of strange things happen through my life, a near-death experience, and coming back with, my abilities tenfold, all these new stuff. Not only was I seeing dead people, but I was seeing different entities. It really drugged me to ufology, and even ufology led me even more into kind of what everybody likes to call the conspiracy theories field. And, it's just so funny, once again, that the fields are all so separate. Everybody thinks the other ones are crazy. But I will assure you that is not the case, because I know that although I may seem a little crazy, I am definitely not. And this is a reality for me. And just as many of you know, Renee, he has an amazing story himself. And, when you start unlocking all the doors to all the answers, they kind of line up kind of like the dominoes. And it's almost like a domino effect, and you start seeing all the connections, and it all starts to make sense. So we're going to talk about it tonight. Is our government trying to, wipe us out? Are we going to have disclosure? Will it be the government, or will it actually be alien beings? And if so, are they here to help us? Are they here to hurt us? There's just so many questions I have tonight. But before we bring our guests in, and I want to talk to Renee real quick too, but I wanted to talk to everybody. I posted on Facebook the other day, yesterday, and it kind of, created a flurry effect. Since my near-death experience, I have been having precog dreams or premonitions for a very long time. I also get visions while I'm awake, all kinds of things like that. So I'm not really sure what they all mean, but I always know when I have them that it is going to be something that is going to happen. I've had it where it's happened, it's taken a year to happen, what I see. Sometimes, and actually over probably the last 5 years, that I've even kind of understood this even more and had a better understanding, I probably jumped up where I have them, and they're usually very close. So I put a post out. The dream that I had was me. I was in a high-rise. I don't even know actually where I was, but all of a sudden I go out on the balcony, and there was people with me, and they were, I don't know, there's quite a few, but I didn't really recognize anybody except for some people on our team. And so I'm out on the balcony, and all of a sudden these fireballs start coming out of the sky. And I mean, literally, they were hitting left and right. It was pretty freaky. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I start seeing all of these, like, alien craft. But I will tell you, they're not discs. They weren't triangles. Like, these were massive, massive ships along with smaller ships. It looked like something right out of the frickin' movies. And I can't remember which one it was. It may be Day After Tomorrow or something. I don't know. It was an alien invasion, and these like robots came out on 2 legs, and I don't know. But I didn't see all that. I just saw them all coming, and they were shooting these beams of light out, and they were looking, like for people. And I'm telling you, I had seen a movie like that. So it was right out of a movie. And I remember that, somebody grabbed me, and I said, my God, look at what's going on. And, I'm trying to wrap my head around and trying to watch to see, if these are searchlights or, what are they looking for, who are they looking for, things like that. And I'm seeing people kind of being sucked up in these beams. And as it starts to come towards us, we all run into the house, and it's like searching around, and I wake up. Oh, well, actually, before it started shaking, and I was actually shown in this a flash of a card, and it was actually out of the Illuminati card deck, which was the meteor card. And they were showing me, like, all these different ones that had already passed, and then they had this one. And so everything starts shaking, and I think that the whole building is coming down, and I wake up. And it shook me so bad that I literally couldn't sleep. The next morning, I went in, and I'm like, okay, I was trying to put it all together, and I posted saying, people who follow me, people who know my shows, know that this happens. I put this stuff out, and it usually comes to be. People know I'm very, very accurate with these, and I don't put them out unless I feel that they're strong enough that may actually mean something. Something I was very, very concerned with was Puerto Rico. And so the next morning I get up and I post this, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to start looking for what's going on. First I start looking at fireballs in the sky, because the night prior we had been talking, and I had been talking to Renee, and he was telling me that, we're getting multiple sightings all over because he kind of tracks all this. Not only are we getting all of that, but we're also getting all kinds of data coming in, from actually all over the world about, different earthquakes and things that were going on. So these massive fireballs were being seen, and then I did a little bit more research, and they said that, there was some, like, meteor that were coming through that, through like the 11th through the 16th or something, were supposed to be very bright, and you would see quite a bit of them. So I thought, okay, well, maybe that's what this is. Still wasn't too sure. Then I go on and I check the USGS, and I find that we've, in just the California area where I grew up, had over 100, or some earthquakes right here in California. But as well, we also have all this other stuff going on. So I'm just kind of like, oh, my gosh, and I've been trying to keep an eye on Fukushima, and there's just so much stuff going on right now that it was amazing. And I really didn't know how to comprehend it all. Because I do kind of research and kind of follow my own path of where everything leads me, I'm not really into the whole everything is a conspiracy, because I don't believe everything is, but I think, there's a good lot of lying that's going on, with us from our government. So if I haven't been, listened to by them from all of my shows about, alien races and disclosure and the conspiracy ones I've done, they will definitely probably be listening to us tonight. So I just wanted to see, let's see, says our guest is here, but let me see, can you send me a message, Dennis, to let me know if Renee is online, or Renee, are you online with us? Okay, great. Okay, so tonight, if anybody has any questions, or you have a comment, or you just want to chime in, our number tonight is 713-955-0384. Now, just so everybody knows, our network, where our network is located, out on the East Coast, they are having some pretty severe weather out there. So they are running the station through a generator. So we are hoping that everything will go, as planned, because this is a really big show. But funny that whenever I've got somebody on that, really is going to help me to put some stuff out there, we start having these kind of issues. So. Thank you, Mother Nature. All right, so, Renee.
Yeah.
You've kind of known what's been going on. I mean, it kind of, created a little stir. I was seeing from my post that, some people were saying they understood and were even having similar dreams. And then there are other people
apocalyptic kind of dreams, yeah. Like I have
and then
one.
That's right. And then on the flip side, we've got other people, because somebody sent me, a YouTube video, and so I put it up there. They're preparing, for FEMA, this Region 3 for FEMA, and they're buying body bags and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And, if they didn't know that this stuff was going to happen, why would they put it out if this is a false flag? But to me, I kind of feel like, what better? You put it out, and in front of them, people will never believe that, it's actually the government doing it. They're going to say, oh, an earthquake. We have earthquakes all the time.
Right.
Right?
Yep, absolutely.
I'm interested to hear from our guest tonight, because, I've heard with Fukushima that that there was possibly, some kind of nuclear detonation that was set off in the ocean, which created that earthquake and tsunami. I've heard, a few different versions. So I'm going to be very interested to hear, his opinions on this. And, you got to do a little bit of research on him as well. What did you think?
I thought he was incredible, because he has been studying this for quite a while. So he looks at all different angles of, doesn't just take it for granted that, okay, that's just another theory. But he has to look at every angle. That's pretty much any investigator would have to do if they want to find the truth, to try to search through all the crap that's already out there, all the disinformation and so forth, and, of course, watching out for these red flags that are spread out. So it's just a matter of how he filtrates through all that to bring up the truth. So we're looking forward to hearing more about what he has to say about it.
Well, absolutely. Well, I think that we have kind of talked about all this stuff now, so I guess it's time to bring in our guest. So we're going to bring in Alfred Weber, and as I said, he has his own radio podcast that he does, I think actually once a week, and covers topics just about the whole area of exopolitics. So, he's got a couple books out there. that's getting ready to come out. In fact, I think one's coming out this year, which is the Dimensional Ecology of the Omniverse. And so I'm going to let him talk a little bit about that. But, you know, he's just doing so many things, and I did put his link up there along with his website on the page for the Eventbrite. So I'm going to actually put it in the chat room, and I've also put it on our regular Aliens, UFOs, and Beyond Facebook page. So everybody make sure to check that out and like that page. Any of the archives you'll be able to find right there right after the show. So, Alfred, are you there?
Yes, I'm very happy to be here.
No, thank you so much for coming. I've been a long time, you know, listener of your show and follower, you know, kind of what you do. And, boy, you covered it all, haven't you?
You know, I was very interested by the dream that you had. I didn't hear all of it, but I sort of got the gist. When exactly did you have that dream?
The night before last.
Uh-huh.
And you know, I got up the next morning and I actually posted about it and started doing some research because I have precog dreams, you know, and visions, you know, for the last 11 years and my near-death experience. So I started doing some research, and usually I can find, you know, something that will, you know, explain it. And I could find things that kind of separately explain different parts of it, but not all of it. But it just seemed like it was so much more that it was not happening yet, but it was coming.
Huh. Okay. Well, perhaps we could talk about that also.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to. Absolutely. Because, you know, as I said, I put it out there.
So why don't you? There are a number of issues that have been raised. One is the Fukushima issue, and then we have the issue of your dream. Whether it could be a precognitive dream or some kind of a warning dream. That's the second issue, and then we seem to share a lot. I was looking at your bio on the page here, and your near-death experience and your communication with spirits, and there's a great deal that we could talk about in terms of the data and the various information and insights that my new book, The Dimensional Ecology of the Omniverse, brings that we could talk about there. So that's a third topic. And so why don't you lead me through this?
Okay. So, you know, well, where would you like to start? Because I know, I mean, there's just so much.
We can go to the more concrete, and that is dealing with the Fukushima event and with the aftermath. And I have a lot of recent data that I can share. Plus, we have been following it since day one, and perhaps we can clear up a lot of questions that people may have. We don't have all of the answers, but you know, would that be a good place to start?
Oh, I absolutely think so. What about you, Renee? I mean, I think that's a great place.
Yeah, it's a good place to start because there's, you know, still a lot going on about talking about the Fukushima, and there's a lot of side stories, different theories about it. So I think it's about the radiation coming to the West Coast, and it's in the weather and everything, and the rain and so forth. Definitely, it's a good place to start.
Okay,
we'll definitely talk about that.
Yeah, generally there's two aspects. Number one, how did Fukushima get started? What was the event back on March 3rd, 2011? And that's a whole subject in itself. It's kind of like 9/11 because it's a false flag operation, and we could go very deeply into that. We could spend a whole program, if not programs, on that. There's a second aspect of Fukushima, which is what is the present state of events? And that's kind of like your dream, right? Which is where are we right now? And my preference, having spent a great deal of time going into the ins and outs of what the false flag event was, would be to get right into where do we stand now. How do you feel about that?
I'm sorry, hold on. I'm sorry. For some reason, I'm having some technical difficulties here. Okay, can you repeat that? My headphones went out for some reason.
Yeah. Basically, what I'm saying is that we can either talk about the original false flag back on March 3rd, 2011, but that's like talking about 9/11. It's really, we'll spend the whole show there. Or we can talk about your dream, basically. We can talk about where do things stand now. And I can give people fresh data hot off the press.
Right. I think that that's a great idea. I think it's a good idea because, I've seen some of the stuff that you sent me that is just getting ready to come out. So, where you're, breaking it here for our listeners. So, and if it does tie into my dream and what's going on, then, for my sake too, I love to be able to connect the dots because I feel like I know what's about to go on, but I'd love to hear, other people as well.
Now, I'm not sure that the Fukushima ties in directly with your dream, but it might. So let's just kind of see where this leads us. Well, very, very briefly, and for people who want to look more intensely at the data, you can go to a website of ours where we have all sorts of information and research and interviews with scientists and others, and that's ecologynews.com. ecologynews.com. Now, what we did is about 10 days ago, we started a new project, and it was Fukushima Extinction Level Event, ? And it was a project in which we asked experts in fields as diverse as radiation and hermeneutics. Now, what hermeneutics is the decoding of prophecy, be that biblical prophecy or other sacred texts. And they're asked to answer the question, is Fukushima an extinction level event? And can you list the top 3 solutions to Fukushima global radiation that you can find? People are asking for solutions. So if you go to ecologynews.com, you'll see this very extended article with a lot of links. And I urge people to go there because knowledge and information is your best kind of preparation to really know what we're dealing with. So the first couple of people are fairly direct. The first one is Bob Nichols. He's a writer with the program Veterans Today. He's come out with an article called Fukushima equals 6,000 Hiroshima bombs today, more tomorrow. And so to our question, he said, first thing, grasp the difficult concept that this is an extinction level event. There is no escaping our fate. There are no solutions. We can extend our lives somewhat, though. These steps are personal. People can do them or not. you will die quicker or later. That's your choice. Number 1, take off your shoes and outerwear coats when you enter your place. 2, stay under a protective roof as much as possible. 3, filter your water. Eat foods that are not radioactive, etc. Okay? And he gave this opinion on December 28, 2013, 1,024 days from March 11, 2011, the Fukushima date. Now, another person that we went to is independent scientist Lorraine Murray, and what she said, hello?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, okay.
I saw that. That's an amazing interview. I saw your interview.
Oh, good. And she said that she provided a grim update on the anticipated effects of ionizing radiation from the Fukushima nuclear false flag operation when combined with radiation effects of depleted uranium weapons and nuclear testing, atmospheric nuclear testing and use, stating that the outcome of these could be an extermination of humanity and of the biosphere as we know it. And then there's a whole bunch of links there. And there's a lot of other people talking. Miran Keshi, who believes that will make 2014 the year that advanced technologies will be mass released to the public so that you can begin to reverse this. And I'll read you my opinion, which is that Fukushima will lead to a consciousness that our society cannot continue as it is, and to a transformation in how humanity organizes our planet. It is not an extinction-level event, in my humble opinion. That's my opinion.
Right.
So let's kind of unpack the various layers of the issues here. And what we found is that, well, first of all, right now, there's like a deluge of information coming out on the internet, and a lot of it is either misinformation or deliberate disinformation. And we find that there's a huge cover-up, and that the intelligence agencies and kind of the mainstream media who are parroting the party line, you know, it's like, oh, 9/11 was an inside job, right? Oh, the LA Times put out a huge article 2 days ago saying there is absolutely no radiation effect from Fukushima radiation in the Pacific Ocean on the West Coast, and it is safe to eat Pacific Ocean seafood, you know. And if you believe the Los Angeles Times, well, you've just shortened your lifespan and that of your family. You know.
Oh my God!
It's
yeah,
like, okay.
Right here on. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Well, I would say we live here on the West Coast. We're right outside of Sacramento, California, and so we've been getting hit with it. And so we've been seeing the craziest stuff washed up and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So there are three levels of radiation, but you know now that there's a huge amount of disinformation. And people are really confused, and there's a lot of memes flying around, and the intelligence agencies and the matrix propaganda machine are active at all levels. They are active at one level saying that there's no problem, and they are active at the other level saying the sky's falling, okay? They are just making up these huge stories. There was just a story released today that even are you familiar with Project Camelot?
Yes, I am, very much so.
Yes.
Yeah, well, Project Camelot released this story today, and I had to go on the internet and kind of debunk it, because they based the entire story that there had been a huge underground nuclear explosion and earthquake on December 31st, 2013, and it's going to go down to the core of the Earth, and we might have an earth-shattering explosion. And it was all based on a news release of Sorcha Fall. And Sorcha Fall is a known disinformation source. I mean, it's just like total disinformation. And what had happened is that Iranian intelligence has now taken over this Farsi Iranian news site called Fars News, and they released it through that. And then Project Camelot and Mehran Keshi, swallowed it whole, and they're talking about it, and it's total baloney. We went back to the USGS, Loren Murray. There isn't even an earthquake registered at all anywhere for December 31st, 2013 in Japan. So there's huge amounts of disinformation that is being spewed out now. So that's the first thing, is find a reliable source. And the second thing is to distinguish between the three types of radiation. One is ground level radiation. What's happening at the ground level? In Sacramento there, right in front of your home, down by the Sacramento River, down by the Capitol, by those beautiful oak trees, etc. My brother lives in
Lake Park.
In Sacramento. He's actually the architect that designed the new Sacramento airport. So I go to visit him, and I know something about your beautiful fair city. So that's one level. And right now, it appears as though ground level, by and large, ground level radiation along the West Coast is pretty much within safe norms. I say that because independent scientist Loren Murray monitors each day in Berkeley, California, and it's still at about 0.3 becquerels, which is still within safe. It was at 0.13 becquerels prior to Fukushima. And so it's still fairly safe. The second type of radiation is the radiation that is being born or carried along in the Pacific Ocean. And there we have going into the Pacific Ocean on a daily basis an enormous amount of deadly radiation. And what we'll do is we'll get into later the exact technical amounts and how this is affecting the fish stocks. So you'll have some concrete idea of why it's a bad idea to eat Pacific Ocean fish right now. Number three, and this is really important, the third type of radiation is what we call the atmospheric air column radiation. And that's the air in the atmosphere going all the way up to the ionosphere, which is right next to outer space. How has this affected? That's the air, the atmosphere that the airplanes fly through. And up there we have the accumulation of radiation from atmospheric nuclear testing and nuclear weapons being used, from depleted uranium weapons, which have been used since 1991, and also from Fukushima, Chernobyl, all these other nuclear events. The main, and so I'm going to recite some data now going into the latter, which is what is the atmosphere like? In other words, is it still safe to fly commercially on an airliner? And I'd like to ask people first, do you think that it's safe to fly right now?
I don't. I'm not a big person for flying anyway, so unless I absolutely have to.
Yeah. Now, would you think that if it weren't safe to fly, the FAA would have said something?
Do I think it? No, I don't think that they would tell us. I think they would do the opposite. They would not tell us, and then we would all get on airplanes, we'd all fly, and we'd all get sick, and there you go. Should they be telling us the correct information? Absolutely. That's what we have been brought up to expect and think. But do they give us this correct information? Absolutely not.
Oh, okay. Well, guess what? On both counts, you were right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to break some. Hello?
Yeah, you're saying that was my co-host Renee. He was saying right on.
Yeah. And I'm going to break some news now here on the air that'll be out in a much more complete form over this coming weekend. And that is that former Vancouver, BC Vancouver, BC Parks Board Commissioner Connie Fogel finds high levels of radiation on Air Canada flight. Okay? And I'll just read this because I think it's important that people really realize what's going on. Just kind of get the facts, because you aren't getting the facts.
Right.
And then once you have the facts, then you can evaluate them and you can discuss them and make up your mind. But if I could just get, the story's not too long, but it's very important that I get these facts out.
Absolutely.
Okay. Using a Radix radiation monitor, Connie Fogel, former Vancouver, BC Parks Board Commissioner, has found high levels of ionizing radiation on Air Canada Flight 854 from Vancouver, BC to London Heathrow Airport on January 11th to 12th, 2014. In a press release dated January 12, 2014, Ms. Fogel states, at 35,000 feet altitude, about one quarter of the way into the flight, and then about one quarter of the way before the end of the flight, readings were averaging 244, 245, and 246 microsieverts per hour. Okay?
Wow.
A dose of 1,500 to 1,700 microsieverts per year is the maximum dose permitted for airline flight attendants. Wow. The passengers on Air Canada Flight A54 absorbed 245 microsieverts per hour.
Wow.
So that means that during for each hour they absorbed during a 9-hour flight a total of over 2,000 microsieverts. And the maximum allowable radiation to be absorbed by under regulation of the FAA is 1,500 per year.
Wow. So that's, and so they've been able to, because I haven't heard this. I mean, this is kind of like mind blowing because I haven't heard anything about this, and this is exactly what you're talking about. Right?
This is breaking news. This is ecologynews.com breaking news, and it's not going to be published until this weekend. But I am giving you a maybe this is what your dream was about. I don't know. Okay. A reading of 245 microsieverts per hour, because, atoms look like kind of boulders, right? A reading of 245 microsieverts per hour is considered dangerous to human health. According to CBT News, a comparable pre-Fukushima flight on Air Canada at 40,000 feet, and this is a 9-hour flight, would expose the passengers to radiation of, quote, between 3 and 9 microsieverts per hour. Before Fukushima, you would get between 3 and 9 microsieverts per hour radiation. Now you're getting 245 microsieverts per hour.
Wow. Lord,
that's up
really
to 10 times. That's up to 100 times the radiation.
Wow.
A typical dental X-ray of several seconds in length, during which patients are protected by lead shielding, emits 10 microsieverts. In this case, the passengers aboard Air Canada Flight 854 were exposed to the radiation equivalent of an average of 24.5 dental X-rays at once, lasting 9.5 hours without any shielding or warning. So suppose you went into a dental office and they lined up 24 and a half dental X-ray machines, and pointed them at you. 24 dental machines, and they put them on high, and they strapped you in there for 9.5 hours without any shielding.
That's crazy. Well, now did they go through like a plume of radiation, or is that just traveling from here to there? That's
that's that our atmosphere. We've become a Death Star. Our atmosphere worldwide is radiated. We've become a Death Star because the radiation doesn't go away. It's there. And it's going to be there for 4 billion years unless it's reversed. And we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
Now, I'll go through the rest real quick. Comparable dangerous levels of radiation were measured by a passenger on a recent commercial airline flight originating in Chile by Atlanta, Georgia, with a final destination in Portland, Oregon. And it was comparable, okay? So it wasn't just a one-off, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a ground-level radiation, Pacific Ocean radiation, and atmospheric air column radiation are the three aspects of Fukushima radiation of most concern to public health, not only in Japan, but in North America and other parts of the globe. Each of these has been impacted differently by Fukushima radiation. Commercial airliners flying over the northern hemisphere as well as the southern hemisphere are now apparently flying through an atmospheric air column with dangerously high levels of radiation that is a cumulative effect of atmospheric nuclear weapons testing, depleted uranium's use, and Fukushima radiation. So that flying is no longer safe. That has not been there is a lockdown on that in the mainstream media. The FAA has not published that. It is unsafe to get aboard an airliner. I was talking to an airline stewardess who's based in New York, and she said to me, the unions are blocking this information and the crews are passing it out among themselves. And there was an article recently, you can go see all of this by going to ecologynews.com, that Air Alaska, there was a sick out of pilots and crew on Air Alaska, and they think it was because they didn't want to get on the planes because of the radiation.
Wow.
Because they fly down from Alaska.
I want to break in just for a second because I just got a message from, our producers, and our producers are being flooded with messages, emails, and social media contacts. Everybody kind of freaking out saying, does this mean that we're all going to die? Are these messages meant for that? But you just said that, this can be reversed, correct?
Correct, and we're going to get to it now.
Okay. I just don't want people thinking that, we're all, doomed yet with, once again, I don't want people making decisions without knowing all of the information. No matter what is to happen, what's going to happen.
We're going to go through three things now, okay? We're going to go through how to protect yourself.
Okay.
Then we're going to go through how our planet, how the radiation can be reversed so our planet can reverse back to its pristine state, okay?
Okay, great.
And that can be through hidden technologies that the national security state has.
Right.
HARP, which is the prime tool of the false flags of the national security state, Tesla technology, can actually be used to reverse the radiation so that it won't be deadly, so it won't have all the free radicals flying around that attack your cells and that then create all the cancers and shut down all the life functions. So all we have to do is dissolve and deconstruct the New World Order and get hold of HARP and reverse the radiation. That's what has to happen, basically.
And it sounds like something like right out of a made-for, TV movie or a big screen, movie because, where they've got this ancient technology, that can save the world and none of the world knows about what's going on. This big catastrophe is happening behind the scenes and everybody's trying to, either destroy the world or save the world. And, I used to always say, like, where do you think they get these stories from, these movie, plots and stuff from? This is taken right out of our history, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Now, if you go to ecologynews.com, so first thing, how do I protect myself? Okay? And I do this as a person 24/7. I've been on this case now ever since Fukushima happened because I knew what was happening. And so I've taken precautions. My family takes precautions. How we eat, what we, what we drink, what we surround ourselves, and what kind of and what our elevated consciousness is. Because the higher your consciousness frequency is, then the less you're going to be affected by radiation because you're ascending. You're in the higher densities. And there's some people that have said that officially, as of January 1st, 2014, the planet has transited into fourth density. That's why we're having so much stratification and separation of densities, as people who really are attached to the third density of service to self or separation are really fighting to stay down there, and the people who really want to go on to service to others and move on to higher frequencies are just moving on. And the higher you go up in frequencies, the less you are affected by radiation. Now, these are some of the links that you'll find at ecologynews.com. How to neutralize radiation and chemtrails from the sky, your garden, and your body. 10 foods to naturally protect yourself from Fukushima radiation. You know a lot of them. Miso soup, chlorella. People use zeolite. Stay away from fish from the Pacific Ocean, because as we'll see, we'll go later and we'll read all the different types of fish that have been found to have this. Then there's very good, there's some programs there and some audios as to practical ways to remove radioactive particles from your body. There's a thing called a biomat that was invented in Japan. And what it does is that it has far infrared, and the far infrared neutralizes and deconstructs all the free radicals in the radiation. And it's the free radicals in the radiation that interfere with the life functioning that your cells are trying to do. What Dr. Bill Deagle says is that there are three things you have to protect in radiation. Number one, protect yourself against the free radicals. Number two, protect yourself against the heavy metals. And number three, protect your mitochondrials. So that's all. Surround yourself by far infrared. Eat Japanese fermented foods like miso soup, chlorella, and some of the other foods that are listed there. Now, I use my biomat 24/7. I sit on it during the day in my office. I'm sitting on it right now, and I sleep on it at night. And so I myself just live inside a bubble of far infrared. And believe me, I'm a 5-planet Gemini who's lived my life traveling all over the globe. I've been, from a very small child. I grew up in Cuba, in Latin America. My family lived in Africa. I worked in Europe. I worked in North America. I live in the United States. I've lived in Canada. I've worked in Asia. I've just been all over the place. And guess what? I'm not flying. I'm not going to fly until the radiation is reversed. And we'll get to, in a second, how is the radiation going to be reversed. And if people want to know how to get hold of the biomats, you can go to our other website, exopolitics.com, and there's a link there to it, or there's a link also in ecologynews.com. Now, how are we going to reverse the radiation? Those are the key questions.
Right.
I've spoken to independent scientist Lorraine Murray, and she says basically there are many Tesla technologies that the New World Order has hidden, and that probably the most efficient technology to reverse the global radiation that we have now, both in the oceans, Pacific Ocean, and in the atmosphere air column, which is global. We have essentially the global atmosphere has been made radioactive. So we have a Death Star now. Our atmosphere has been made radioactive. And unless that's changed, this is an extinction level event. And that can be changed very, very easily and very quickly through HAARP, because that can go through the formula of E equals MC squared and just transmute the radiation into harmless frequencies. It's all frequencies. And so what we have is an Anunnaki reptilian gray Illuminati power structure that is, trying to commit themselves to this genocidal, ecocidal program because they want to get down from 7 billion down to 500 million. And so we have to awaken ourselves and say, no, that's not going to happen. And take command of the HAARP facilities and reverse this, and take command of the facilities and reverse this. Now, what's going to happen if we're not able to do that? If the New World Order just continues to do that? So, continues on their genocidal path. So that's why we went into alternative experts, and here, Christina, here is information that your audience, I think, can relate to and you can relate to. The first expert that we went to was a hermeneutics expert, a biblical prophecy expert named Peter Kling. You may know him. And he answered, we asked him the standard question, is Fukushima an extinction level event? And he said, Alfred, Fukushima is an extinction level event as we know it. As we know, it happened on an alignment with the comet Elenin and is most likely a man-made event using HAARP and tsunami bombs. The results officially now fit the prophecy at Revelation chapter 8, verses 10 to 11. 1/3 of the Earth's drinking water is now contaminated with Fukushima radiation, as per a report I read about 2 to 3 weeks ago. The bad news is that a lot of people are going to die due to the radiation. The good news is that for the most, the radiation will have very little short-term effect and will take years to become deadly and would be even more deadly for the next generation to come. Each nuclear reactor is a potential Fukushima event, and if we get a Nibiru or Planet X, then every one of them is going to go off. Without outside help, we are pretty much screwed. However, if the Nibiru event is the last and final sign before the return of the King of Kings and the armies of the multiverse, and they have the technology to fix the issue. Remember, everything works on vibration at the subatomic level. Change the vibration and you change the properties of the atom. Hence, all radiation can be rendered inert literally in an instant. The only thing I would be concerned about now is the fallout and radioactive hotspots. And then there's some links there for people who want to go. Now, there's a second person we went to, and that's Mary Rodwell, and she lives in Australia, and she is an expert on extraterrestrial contactees, and her specialty is that she interviews crystal kids. These are the contactees who spend the day on the ground, and in the evenings they go up to the ships, and they're the new generation of children.
Right.
And she has interviewed more than 2,000 cases of conscious interaction with extraterrestrials, including at the soul level. And what she says is that there's the extraterrestrials tell the crystal kids of a coming shift, which is an awakening and transformation of human consciousness. And that's what's needed, because if the whole human consciousness changes, then the New World Order matrix can't keep everybody under wraps, and they say, what is this? We're not going to allow this globe to be taken down and ourselves to be irradiated. Get out of the way, We're going to turn this off. And what the ETs tell the children who tell Mary is that around 2017 is going to be the time of the shift. And there's some links there. You can go to those articles and those interviews. Now, there is another factor coming up because we're in 2014. And 2014 and 2015, as both of you know, have the tetralunar eclipses. And what that means is that that's an astronomical configuration that has not happened since 1492, the year that Columbus discovered America, and is not going to happen for another 1,000 years. And that is that we have 2 lunar eclipses in 2014 and 2 in 2015, each on the Jewish high holidays of Passover, and I think it's temples. The first is on April 14th, 2014, which is Passover, and they're separated by 2 solar eclipses, which come between the lunar eclipses in 2014, the 2 lunar eclipses in 2014 and the 2 lunar eclipses in 2015. And what the tetralunar eclipses are called blood moons, because that's when the moon turns blood red. And if you go to the biblical prophecies, that's when the sun darkens and the moon turns blood red. And we all know that that's when the sign of the Son of Man is. So there are going to be hyperdimensional happenings that are about spiritual transformation, that are about, whatever it's going to be, is this planet is not going to be allowed to perish. And whether that's the return of the King of Kings, the armies of the multiverse, positive extraterrestrial intervention, using advanced technology with frequencies, the radiation can be reversed in an instant because it's just frequencies. And right now, for example, just so you all understand, and again, you can go to Ecology News and see it, Lady Barbara Judge is the person who has been put in command, in charge of, coordinating the world scientific response to the Fukushima radiation. And she is normally in the UK, and she lives in Fukushima now. Lady Barbara Judge is a nuclear advocate, and she's an Illuminati. She's a Satanist. And her job there is to make sure that none of the scientific efforts get through. And I just wish that you would go there and just take a look at her picture. She looks like a malevolent gray ET. It'll blow your mind. And when I was on the radio on our Exopolitics TV, channel with psychic Anya Briggs, and Anya Briggs was exposing Lady Barbara Judge. This was about 6 months ago, and she hadn't been appointed yet. The coordinator of the World Scientific Response to Fukushima, the NSA shut us down. We couldn't get online on Skype. We couldn't broadcast on Google. We couldn't get anything out about Lady Barbara Judge. And that's why they shut us down, because they have put a satanic, wicked spirit in as the person directing. She's a British peer under the Queen, who is satanic, under the British Crown, which actually, with the U.S., has caused Fukushima with the City of London bankers, and that's what's at stake. And I have spoken plainly here, and I hope that I've spoken clearly. So you'll have to tell me whether I've spoken clearly.
Oh, absolutely. And, something that's very interesting that you talk about is there is so much technology that has been provided, to our government that would completely wipe out the need for any kind of fossil fuels or electricity, or to have to, pay all these debts. And, there is a whole different way that we could be living. But, obviously these things are being kept secret, They are being, hidden, and trying to convince us that they don't exist, but yet all around us they're using them. I know a lot that, like with the HAARP, I think has so much to do with all of the crazy weather that we are having across the globe. I mean, it's
right.
You start using it here, you start using it there, and, you start messing with stuff you really don't understand, because I don't really think that anybody who uses technology is going to give us everything, about it. They're going to give us just enough to make us, do something and screw up the world, and then we're going to need their help, if they're going to give it to us. I mean, is that kind of your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, right now, just to go back to what you were just talking about, what the New World Order matrix is running, using using HAARP, which could be used beneficially, but they're using it as an environmental weapon. They have been running an end time script. All of these things that we see are end time script. For example, the polar vortex over this New Year's holiday with record freezing temperatures, we did an analysis which showed that was a weather warfare attack, both on the North American continent and on the European continent. That's all weather warfare. And that was partially to ferry over more of the Fukushima radiation, and also as psychological warfare and as attacks on the people. So all of this is completely artificial. It's all artificial because what the New World Order is attempting to do is to simulate the end times, so that they believe that they're playing God. They're satanic. And Lucifer and Satan's ultimate sin was to think themselves God, correct?
Right.
So
correct.
That's what they're doing in their technology. Now, people may or may not agree with it. This is some of the hopeful signs. We had Byron Belitsos on Exopolitics TV, and people can go to youtube.com/ just Google Exopolitics TV, and he is an expert on the Urantia book. And what they concluded there is that the trial of Lucifer is an actual historical being, and Satan was an actual historical being. These were high angels who rebelled against the universe administration, the divine government, historically, and took this quadrant of the galaxy into rebellion, and that's why we've been under quarantine. And the Earth is one of the planets that's been under quarantine ever since the Lucifer rebellion. That's why it's such a tough planet. And according to this information that has been brought in now, the trial of Lucifer and Satan ended in 1985, our time, and they have been found guilty, and the verdict has been execution at the soul level. So they are, and it's gone through the final appeals, and even now, Satan and Lucifer will not, surrender, which is to say, okay, I'm sorry, or whatever. But the New World Order on the planet, even though they're Satanists, they don't have anybody behind it. There is no spiritual power behind the New World Order, behind the Satanists. So all that they're doing is going with their own ritual, but they don't have any spiritual beings backing them up, because Lucifer and Satan have already been on the verge of execution and have already been found guilty. So, it's the power of the multiverse here. They are just like doing these desperate measures to blow up the planet in a scorched earth policy because they think that Satan is still all-powerful, but Satan doesn't exist anymore. So that's the irony of the whole thing.
Wow. I mean, I know, Renee, you're taking all this in, too. I mean, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah.
We've had all these conversations, too.
So pretty much the same, because I knew about the trials that were taking place, the rebellion, which created this great war in heaven. That's why everybody talks about this war in heaven, even in the Bible. And, I know Lucifer, Satan is one of them, Loki is another, several others that followed along with them. Even certain extraterrestrial groups also be followed along with it. And so Earth, sad to say, is fallen under its influence rather than the beings themselves. Like what he was saying, may not be direct contact with Satan or Lucifer because they're already being convicted, but mankind is just basically following their own rituals. They're just copycat, like a copycat killer kind of thing. So and then there's other type of beings that are down here that are like the fallen ones of the universal law, are having an influence too with mankind, with the underground bases and so forth. So yeah, it's definitely pretty serious.
Yeah. We have a question from Luis Campos in the chat room, and he's asking me that if I can ask you, Alfred, if you know anything about the alien god that the Vatican has been waiting for a big deception.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because we are definitely in that time.
I believe so as well.
And the fact that Pope Bergoglio, Pope Francis I, was just named Man of the Year for Time magazine, goes along with that. There are various ways to look at this. One way to look, and of course, there's a whole analysis that the current Pope is what they call Petrus Romanus. He is if you go into the book of Revelation, he is the false prophet. And the Antichrist would be like a world king, probably the king under the House of Windsor, probably Prince William when he's being raised to King William, probably over the next couple of years, and it appears as though now the Pope is going to Israel in May, and there's a lot of word that he will be named the power behind the world money, i.e. what comes up to be the world money. He will be the power behind the world money, which will be a digital currency, so they can give you your password, and if they take away your password, well, you're part of the underground economy. That's the old thing. People who get chipped and people who don't get chipped. And what's interesting about the Vatican and the connection to the ETs, this is one version of it.
Okay.
And but there's a lot of logic to it. If we look at the Pope, what the Pope is really is he is the Roman emperor that morphed into the Pope. And essentially the world has been run by the Roman emperor for the last 2,000 years because the Roman emperor morphed into the Pope in the synods of 325 AD, when they got rid of a lot of the early stuff of the church, and they just streamlined it and the Roman emperor became the Pope, and the priests became a worldwide espionage agency, and they became a worldwide political agency and land control agency and taxing agency and controlling all of the, governments. And from that time, from the time of the Roman emperors, there are Italian families that at the time of the Roman emperors controlled the Roman government, controlled the families from which the Roman emperors came, and those families still exist and have been in power since that time, since the Roman Empire's time. And they are the Borgias, the Farneses, and a number of other recognizable names. Now, all of those are extremely satanic. And one version of it says that they were responsible, for example, for when the Reformation happened, they created the Jesuits to be the espionage and military arm and the child genocide arm. These families, and so now we have the culmination with the Jesuit Pope, and one of the versions is that they prepared for the incarnation of kind of a negative spiritual being who has come in through Africa, and that the recent funeral of Nelson Mandela really was a psyop, because Mandela had died last summer, factually. And at that time, there had been a very mysterious meeting of the 3 U.S. presidents in Africa. Bush, Obama, and Clinton, Bill Clinton, got together in Africa, and nobody could figure out why they were there, except that they were there probably planning the next false flag. And that false flag was that they were probably playing obeisance to this negative being that's incarnated in Africa, that's come through a portal, and getting ready for the rollout. I think they call him Maldek or something, or Marduk, and that now this is a hypothesis, but it's just trying to put together data, and that the one function of the false flag of the Mandela funeral was to get all the leaders there so that they could plan out the next stages of the false flag, which are the 2014 and the 2015, and where they're trying to get World War III off the ground, because all these wars happen during the lunar eclipses. Like the last time that we had this configuration, not as full as we have it now, but was 1948 with the founding of the State of Israel, and it was in 1948 that we had the ethnic cleansing of Palestine, where they drove out 1.5 million Palestinians, and they took over Palestine and founded the State of Israel under these eclipses, which fell on the Jewish high holidays. So this is pretty deep stuff. And so now they may be trying to get World War III off the ground during these eclipses. But the flip side of the coin is that spiritual transformation happens during these eclipses also. And so the light can use the eclipses for this as well. So, therefore, those of us who are aware of this are putting out plans and saying, hey, guys, let's wake up, and we can reverse the radiation. Here are some good plans. The ETs are behind us. You know, just change the picture a little bit, and they're real. And the New World Order has really painted themselves into a corner. So it's that kind of a situation where, do you want to look at the glass half full or half empty? And that's why it's always, you never look through the fear button, you always look through the love button, and you always see things as positive, because that's what's happening now. We are at, you know, a real time of the last stages of the fulfillment, but the New World Order is trying to appropriate the end times by putting on a fake end times. But don't get faked out by that. Then grab hold of the real end times and play it down on them. I don't know if I'm being entirely clear.
Oh, no, you're clear.
Right now, yeah, because right now, from what I saw, like during the 80s and so forth, there was like a gray area, and you know, there are so many ways where they think what's bad is bad and what's good kind of thing, or you could just stay in the middle and not be involved in whether it's right or wrong. But now we're in a period where more people are waking up to that there is a very defined line, what is bad, what is good, you know, about the change of the vibration as you're talking about. When you see what our government and our society is doing right now, there's like, it's either one extreme to the other extreme. So it's coming very defined right now. So if you look at the satanic stuff, the veil is gone. Let's put it that way. The veil is totally gone right now. That you can actually see what's really taking place. And a lot more people are starting to wake up to it, seeing that they're making the changes for either do what is right, making the right direction, making the right decisions, achieving love, peace, and then the other side is more extreme to the darker side.
Right, absolutely. Well, and we've got about, I think, 40 minutes left. I would like to kind of talk about the dream I had and some of what may be correlating with this. Because, you know, as I said, when I get these, you know, like everybody gets dreams, and I'm in no way saying that, you know, every dream is anything prophetic or is going to come true. But these certain ones that I have are much different than a regular dream. And so over the years, I know the difference between them. And, you know, one of the things that I saw right away waking up from this precog was, it was interesting that I was shown the Illuminati card that had the meteor on it. And, you know, I go on and then I see that we're seeing all the fireballs all over the United States, and I did a little research on that, and of course they were saying that, you know, from the 11th through the 16th was going to be, we were going through an area where we were going to see a lot of, you know, meteors and things like that. And I also, again, see a really big earthquake, and I was shown Puerto Rico. But those all, you know, fit. But as I said, these crafts that showed up out of nowhere, and I mean, they were different sizes. I mean, huge, and then smaller ones. The thing is that they looked like nothing that I've seen, like on videos or anything like that. They reminded me of ships and stuff that we would see, like back on the Star Trek. You know, when they would come up against these other alien species, and they have different ships and things like that. It's similar to that. And they were literally shooting these beams out of it, and people were being sucked up into these beams. And, you know, it was as if it was searching for specific people, because it wasn't taking everybody. And so what are your thoughts on that itself? I mean, do you think that we're coming close to disclosure? And even if it was disclosure, I feel like that's going to be like another psyops because, you know, we've already got the technology. Not only do we have the technology, but we've, you know, sprayed with the chemtrails. So and with the holographic, you know, and Project Bluebeam and everything that we have already had for a very, very long time, you know, would it be something to scare us, or would it actually be alien beings? And if so, you know, are they here to help us or to destroy us? I mean, I just don't really know where all this leads.
Well, yeah, these are all these are okay. So I mean, just without getting into your dream, I can address some of the issues that the various, you know, right now, yes, there are plans for an extraterrestrial false flag, or there could be the possibility of a false flag invasion, or there could be some kind of intervention that involves the negative side, where negative ETs, who are many rogue elements or elements of the Draco reptilians and Orion Greys, or rogue Anunnaki, really are staging all kinds of fake stuff with elements of the Illuminati government and their fleets to really fool humankind and to make it look as though there's an ET landing or an ET fight, and that would fake people out or attempt to fake people out. And yes, that's a scenario that could plausibly happen. What some of the analysts say is that, and that has been described in prophecy, and that's where the positive ETs, the upper dimensionals, the armies of the multiverse, come in. And what Armageddon is where the armies of the multiverse come in and they just decimate and wipe out the New World Order and the negative ETs. So that's one scenario. The scenario that I kind of favor more and more, but I don't know, I guess because it's, you know, I have a bias toward it, but I've been following it for 40 years, and somehow it pans out. In fact, my first book was called The Age of Cataclysm, and it was published by G.P. Putnam's. And what it did, it was the first book to integrate earth sciences, geology and seismology with psychic prediction and biblical prophecy. And we took the Casey predictions of earth changes and we integrated them with what the seismology and geology said. It was published in 1974. And you can go to exopolitics.com and you can download it for free. And basically what happened there is that Edgar Casey had you can call it a remote viewing, a vision of a global coastal event on the planet. And a global coastal event would be caused by something like the passage of a large, you know, celestial body like a twin star, like a red dwarf would come in, and the effect would be to have a global coastal event, i.e., you know, something comes in. It's like the event that wiped out the dinosaurs. It comes in. It just you have tidal waves that destroy all of the urban cities, and you know, about 90% of humanity lives along the coast, and you know, and that's what Edgar Casey saw back in, and so I've been monitoring the global coastal event, or Nibiru, or Planet X, or your dream for 40 years, right? And so Right, and so everything is a probability. It's not like an absolute. You have working hypotheses, and the current working hypothesis, and people can go to. We have a group on Facebook called 2013 Dual Sun Mystery. And you can join it there, and there's a lot of discussion about, the pros and cons of this or that or the other. And the best information that we have right now is that there is not a red-brown dwarf in the inner solar system. In fact, the closest red-brown dwarf is 6 light years away, and that's farther away than the closest star, which is 4.5 light years away, and that at this time, if we're going to have a global coastal event from a Planet X that would happen within, say, the 2013 to 2025 period, we would be able to see that star. We would be able to see that celestial body because it's so large and it would be so close. And we've been able to deconstruct all of the arguments that say, oh, well, you have to have an infrared telescope like the Lucifer telescope that the Vatican has, and that's why they call it Lucifer. And all those arguments have been deconstructed, and then there are all these photographs that, people have dual suns, and why do lens flares look like planets? And we've deconstructed all of that and shown that some of them are actually Photoshops, and shown that the majority are actually lens flares. And we've taken the current expert, Marshall Masters, and I can say his name because he's read my 1974 book, The Age of Cataclysm, and said, wow, this is a masterpiece. And then I said, yeah, but it's not currently valid, because the timeline has changed. We're on a positive timeline because we live in a multiverse that's composed of timelines. And what Edgar Cayce remote viewed was a timeline that is not materializing. And so we've been able to deconstruct all of his videos and show that using very, very advanced software with astronomers from New Zealand show that it's just not going to happen. So then the question is, in your dream, is it symbolic? That is, are we facing social catastrophe like a Fukushima, where the meteors in there actually the atoms inside the atmosphere, right? That could be from a symbolic standpoint. There is something brewing up in the dimensions, in the dimensional ecology, between the lower fourth density ETs that are service to self, rather, and that are planet occupiers, the Draco Reptilians, Orion Greys, the rogue Anunnakis, and the upper dimensional regional galactic governance council that are light-oriented, that are light-being humans, plus all of the celestials that really are looking out for humanity's ascension into 4D, into service to others. My own interpretation of your dream, and I could be wrong, is that we have shifted timelines to where we're not on a literal catastrophic timeline where we're going to have a global coastal event, and B, simply because, everyone that comes by, like now they said, oh, all of the debris from ISON is coming in. Like when I saw it, when you described your dream, I said, oh, that's the typical description of the debris field from ISON, okay? And it's just not happening. And you can go to our group 2013, Dual Sun Mystery, and there's videos there that show why we're not hitting the ISON debris, the debris field. You see, 2,000 years ago, a paradise son of God incarnated on this planet, and it was to take back this planet from a deep Luciferian, satanic, draconian rebellion. And there's much deeper stuff going on here from a spiritual standpoint, and it's just not happening this time. Besides, there's a lot of other theories that show that the 3,600-year orbit of Nibiru is not up at this time, but rather it's up at other times, and that is, it'll be coming around in future years, not at this time, and that there was a big disinformation scheme. In fact, you can go to exopolitics.com and you can see how using the inside information from Zecharia Sitchin's longtime publisher, who came to us as a whistleblower, we showed that, in fact, he was a Mossad disinformation agent who used fraudulent texts. And that's why the publisher hired an expert translator from the Sumerian to expose him, which we did at exopolitics.com. And Zecharia Sitchin worked for the Pentagon. He was in the Pentagon on the date of the invasion of Iraq, and he confessed to the publisher that this was all about creating an end-of-the-world scenario in order to implant the New World Order here. So he created these texts which said that Nibiru was coming around so that they could, get everybody terrified. So what we're doing now is we're in the process of deconstructing memes. I spend all day today deconstructing the meme that was put out by an Iranian news agency, that part of which has been taken over by the Iranian intelligence agencies, that put out this thing that there had been a nuclear explosions on December 31st, 2013, which now were threatening the core of the Earth, which could explode. And we showed that came out through Sorcha Fall. And, so I just spent a lot of time putting out fires. Now, what I should have been doing was working on the publication of my book, which is coming out. So I can talk about my book for a little bit if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, what it is that this book is called The Dimensional Ecology of the Omniverse. And it discusses the dimensional ecology in the Omniverse, where the intelligent civilization of souls, spiritual beings, and Source, or God, in the spiritual dimensions, co-create and inhabit the intelligent civilizations in the exopolitical dimensions. We're in the exopolitical dimensions of the universes of time, space, energy, and matter in the multiverse. Right now, as Alfred, as Christina, we are souls that are incarnating in these bodies in a universe of time, space, matter, and energy. in a multiverse of time, space, matter, and energy in the exopolitical dimensions. But we are souls that come from the spiritual dimensions wherein are based the intelligent civilization of souls, spiritual beings, and Source or God. And what we've been able to do in this book is to stay strictly within the scientific method. About 4 years or so ago, this is going to be my first book since my year 2000 book, Exopolitics, which founded the science of relations among intelligent civilizations in the multiverse. And what happened was that using advanced quantum access technology, DARPA and CIA time-traveled my 2005 book, Exopolitics, Politics, Government, and Law in the Universe, back from 2005 back to 1971, when I was General Counsel of the Environmental Protection Administration of New York City under John Lindsay. And I was then unwitting, and I was examined, at a public speech. They invited me to give a speech on the environment, and what I didn't know is that they weren't an environmental group. They were a group of 50 CIA and DARPA officials who had my book from 2005 and who knew from time travel, because they brought my book back to 1971, that I would be a leading future extraterrestrial and time travel whistleblower and would become the developer of the exopolitics and dimensional ecology models of the universe. So this new book is really a breakthrough in the sense that it cracks the code of the Omniverse. And it brings the whole scientific method. And it is the integration of spirituality and science that has been prophesized for this time. About 4 years ago, Oxford University Press, which is a division of Oxford University, asked me to write a book on extraterrestrials on the law and the law. And what I realized is that you can't get here from there, or you can't get there from here. That is, how could a third-dimensional court acquire jurisdiction over a six-dimensional Arcturian, for example? It just can't happen. Yeah, so...
You were talking about DARPA, and we've got about 15, 17 minutes or so to go for the show. But I would like to talk about them for a minute, because I recently Renee and I went to the movies, okay, and they were doing all of the previews of the movies, and I kept looking at him like, you've got to be kidding. Like, they had all these different movies. One was a preview of the new sci-fi program Helix, about, the scientists that are working on these secret projects, and they create a virus that, they can't seem to control, and they're trying to, make sure that they contain it and all this stuff. And then we also saw, right after that, is the new RoboCop. And as soon as I saw the new RoboCop, it blew me away, because I had been sharing a lot of information about DARPA's new robot that they have. And the face looks very human. They have downloaded, since they got the information they thought they've, figured out the human brain, and they've downloaded the software program into this robot. And so they were in the new RoboCop, they were saying, the United States was the only ones not really wanting to, really wrap their minds around, robotic technology, because there would be no more reason for another human law enforcement agent to be, killed in the line of duty, et cetera, that they would do what they were told in this program. But somehow, because they had also downloaded all this human, information from the brain, that it had downloaded free will, which then allowed the computer to override itself and not do what it was told. And on DARPA,
right.
and we saw that I put this video out of their new one that they have, as well as this new bodysuit that they have created for the elite in our military, for like the SEALs and things like that, where it's right out of Will Smith's and his son's new movie, where it can monitor all of your heart rate, if you're not feeling well, all these different things. Where do you think that's going to go? Because we're looking at FEMA camps, and we're looking at all of these different things, and, a lot of the things we're seeing in movies, I feel we're right, is coming right towards us.
Yeah, sure. That's a very key question that you asked, and I really am very happy that you asked it. That's what we call the transhumanist agenda. And that's an agenda to robotize humanity. And people can go, again, we have been covering that. Just go to exopolitics.com and look at our interviews and articles there on the transhumanist agenda. And we have been working as a consultant to European experts in this area, and we now have completed the draft of legislation for the European Union to be passed in the European Parliament and adopted by the European Commission to outlaw the use of HAARP and chemtrails and outlaw the use of implants and superquantum computers to robotize humanity, which is what they're planning now. Basically, where things stand now is as follows. The statistics are that they estimate that approximately 80% of humanity has already been implanted, but they haven't been activated yet. And what implanted means is that it means that the function of the chemtrails is that the chemtrails contain nanobots, which are really implants. And the people in the cities and over which the chemtrails are dropped, they breathe in the nanobots, which get into the bloodstream, and then these jump the blood-brain barrier and go in to the brain and set up and start emitting RF frequencies, and then are entrained to banks of supercomputers, and then are entrained to the super grid, which is in turn entrained to HAARP, which means that they en masse can deliver messages to activated masses of humanity, can deliver dreams to masses of humanity. For example, even since the mid-'80s, we used to call it dream warfare, where I know that there are parts of dreams that I would have that are real psychological dreams, and there were others that were spiritual dreams, but there were other dreams that I knew that were spiritual warfare that are implanted dreams, and they have the technology for that, which is how they affect the limbic system, which is where people have their emotions. And so the goal here is to take over humanity and make them a robotized race so that their God is the controller, where it's the artificial intelligence that controls the supergrid of the supercomputers, and they are moving toward creating a robotized transhumanist race here that would be controlled and whose thoughts would be totally controlled by the computers, i.e. that's the function of HAARP. The negative function is to cut off the spirit, because out of the crown chakra is coming these narrow silver threads that go out into non-local space, which is your connection to source. And HAARP, the function of HAARP is to block these. See, HAARP is primarily a spiritual weapon, then it's a physiological weapon, and then it's a scalar weapon, and so that's the transhumanist agenda. And in the United States, it's very powerful. For example, all the school shootings are part of a CIA program to disarm the U.S. population. And all of the school shooters are chosen from a psychiatric profile, and they're MK Ultra, and they're conditioned, and ranging from you name it, from Columbine to Sandy Hook, and they're all tied into all of the other false flags. For example, Hurricane Sandy was tied into Sandy Hook Elementary. It's all a massive mind control program, and what I call the capstone on it is Barack Obama, because Barack Obama always comes in and delivers the capstone. This is part of the pyramidal structure where he comes in and says, "Oh, we are so sad, but now we must march forth." And he comes in right on target, and he's just part of this enormous false flag. So I call it the Pope, the Queen, and the Obama. He's three of the upper theater figures of the New World Order.
Well, and it's interesting you say, that I was just reading not too long ago, in fact, in something I think that Andrew Basaggio is working on as well, but in the I think in London or in that area, England area, UK, there has been legislation or laws that have put in place that you cannot talk about or harass or stalk any royalty or celebrity or things like that, and they can then take you and they can arrest you. They don't have to charge you. They can hold you as long as they want, and there's nothing you can do. Yet we saw through Obama's presidency that he was creating all these executive orders which were saying exactly the same thing. He was trying to see put it off as it was for terrorists. But, when you put homegrown terrorists, and, anybody could be called a quote-unquote terrorist, for any reason. Yeah. And, that's pretty scary. And I heard about, somebody who was, an organization out there who was very public and was, doing rallies and stuff. And they literally went and arrested this person and said, and this I think is the second person now, and has, said that they're, crazy, and put them in held them against their will in a mental institution, in order to shut them up. Do you think that these executive orders by Obama was, put in place for the same kind of premise, so that, he will shut everybody down and not let them, wake up, and because they would probably, if they knew everything that was going on and all of the lies that we've been told, that they probably would revolt. Well,
that's what they're attempting to do. Now, they haven't been able to do it, but that's what they're attempting to do. Now, The First Amendment here is fairly strong. We had two cases of two NGOs. One is the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State, where one of their members in Coventry, UK, just this past week, he suffered an unlawful psychiatric internment, and they couldn't quite catch him, so they went and arrested his wife to try to force him in, and he wasn't guilty of anything. It was just they have a law there that if you go more than once to a rally, or you say something about the Queen more than once, well, you're fixated, and therefore you're crazy. So boom. So it's a thought crime, and almost the same week in Brussels, in UCAT's European Coalition Against Covert Harassment, that's fighting against the transhumanist agenda, their Brussels-based director, Melanie Richon, 3 police showed up at her apartment and brought her down to a mental institution for no cause, except they had a warrant from the King of Belgium, and attempted to have her committed psychiatrically, except that she had full tests, and her GP, verified it, and the psychiatrist, the three police were trying to pressure the psychiatrist to sign the commitment order, and fortunately he wouldn't do it. So that's a new tactic. So, people, the First Amendment and the U.S. Constitution is a living instrument. So just stand on your constitutional rights. That's what I say. And, and because all of these people are virtual. They don't exist. They don't exist anymore. They've been left back in 3D as of January 1st, 2014.
Okay. Well, oh wow. Well, we got about 5 minutes left, so
wow.
I'm going to let you put out the last few, links that you want to put out to your different sites. I will also, any of those that you want, I will make sure is on the Aliens, UFOs, and Beyond site for people who want to, connect with you.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, it's very simple for people looking at the multidimensional aspects of things. It's at exopolitics.com. And for looking more at the Fukushima aspects of it, it's at ecologynews.com. And it's really frequency of vibration and consciousness that determines everything, because we're in a virtual reality, which is this time-space hologram. And all that the New World Order is trying to do is to get us farther down into fear, so our vibration falls, and therefore radiation and illness affect us more. But guess what? We're now passing stratification thresholds where they've been left behind, so they don't exist anymore. I mean, they might, like in a dream, exist, but not really. Right.
Well, I just want to, thank you again for joining Renee and I. It has been, such an informational, 2 hours, and I truly thank you, because you've answered a lot of, or actually validated a lot of things that I've come up with myself, as well as, Renee and I talking about, all this different stuff and the connections. So it's nice to hear somebody. Yeah, exactly. Especially from somebody, like you, who's been in this field, for so long and really can look at the big picture. So I really appreciate that. Everybody, we also want to thank you that are in our chat room and listeners. We had all kinds of listeners tonight. Once again, it's amazing. Every week our numbers grow. So I want to thank everybody that came to listen to our show, as well as our guests be on the show. We hope that you'll be back next week. We'll have some more great shows for you coming up. Renee's working on some amazing stories and people and guests to come on, so I want to thank him as well. I do want to remind everybody, the weekend of March 28th through the 30th, myself and Renee, my team, we will be out in Las Vegas, California. We're going to be at the For Real International Convention, and it's going to be the Awakening Conference. We're going to be taking all fields, the paranormal, the ufology, exopolitics, all of these fields, and we're going to be bringing the speakers together as a para-unity, because we need to start understanding the connections between all of these fields and stop separating ourselves, because, the information, we are very powerful together. But without everybody sharing all of their information and really understanding how this all connects in the big scheme of things, we're never going to, really be able to, get out all the information like we're supposed to. So that being said, I appreciate it. If you want to leave feedback on the site, you can go to the Aliens, UFOs, and Beyond site on Facebook or my page, leave the feedback. We love to hear from you. And Renee, do you have anything last minute that you want to say? We've got about a minute.
You can look me up on Facebook as well if you want to know any more about the aliens and UFO subjects. And of course, I've been keeping my eyes on a lot of the activity as far as the meteor showers and so forth that are going on, and of course our earthquakes and so forth. So if you want to know more stuff about that, I'll be happy to talk with you.
All right, great. Okay, everybody, well, I want to thank you again for listening. Make sure to go to the DTM website, leave some feedback there. Check out all of the shows, and we have our links. And coming up soon, you'll be able to access us right through the website itself. So we look forward to seeing you next week, and good night to all of you. Thank you again, Alfred, for coming on. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming.
Certainly, it's been a great pleasure. Thank you very much.